Alrighty, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. This is a community meeting for special use permit request 2021-17 for Foster Forge Farm School. My name is Scott Clark. I am a planner with the Community Development Department, and we also have the applicant, Dr. Ann Wachmeister, here to speak to you as well. I'll do a brief presentation just about the county review processes for special use permits, then I'll turn it over to the applicants for them to provide you with more detail on this proposal. And then after we're all done with that, we'll have a question and answer session. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and get started on the opening presentation before we turn it over to the applicants. Alrighty, and again, this is for SP2021-17. Purpose of tonight's meeting is to share information about the proposed project, the associated development review process, and related policies and regulations, and to inform you all who are interested citizens and potentially neighbors, and to solicit some input from you on this project. A summary of this input will also be included in the staff report that goes to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors later in the process. I'll say more about that in a bit. So, special use permits are reviewed against the comprehensive plan. Just a quick refresher on what that is. The county's comprehensive plan establishes a 20-year vision for land use in the county. It contains a lot of policies and recommendations. They're adopted for the rural areas and the development areas. And those are developed through an extensive engagement process with the public. Every 5 years or so, we update that plan to provide direction for land use decisions in the county. Tonight's project is located in the area of the comprehensive plan designates as rural area. You can see here the goal for the rural portions of our county and several objectives: supporting a strong agricultural and forestal economy, protecting and preserving natural resources, protecting historic, archaeological, and cultural resources, promoting rural and historic landscapes that enhance visitors' experiences and give historic sites an authentic setting, recognizing and supporting crossroads communities, which is not relevant to tonight's proposal, providing distinct boundaries between the rural area and the development areas, providing useful information to citizens so they can be well informed about the rural areas. And the last one is related to planning between the county and the University of Virginia. And again, Objective 8 does not apply to tonight's proposal. What is zoning? Zoning is the sets of regulations that implement the comprehensive plan in individual districts. It says here, most counties and cities have laws about what you can build and where. It depends on what zone you're in. The colorful map there shows you lots of different zoning districts that might be residential, commercial, industrial, etc. The majority of the county, including the site we're talking about tonight, is in the rural areas or RA zoning district, and that lists many uses that are permitted by right and some that are permitted by special use permit. So zoning ordinance dictates that what can be done by right today, and also lists uses that are only permitted by special use permit. A special use permit can only be approved by the Board of Supervisors, and this and all other special use permit applications will go to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors before the end of the process. So when the county receives an application for a special use permit like this, it is first reviewed by county staff and other agencies such as VDOT or the Service Authority, and information on that review is provided to the applicants so they can revise their application to better comply with county regulations and policies. After that staff review process is done, the application is reviewed by the Planning Commission, who advises the board on land use issues, and finally by the Board of Supervisors. Anytime that we have a special use permit application, we review it against consistent standards, which you can see here. There are 4 general standards for how special use permits are reviewed. 1, that there should be no substantial detriment to adjacent properties. 2, that the overall character of the nearby area is unchanged. 3, whether it's in harmony with the purposes of the ordinance, regulations in section 5, if there happen to be any, and with the public health, safety, and general welfare. And finally, consistency with the comprehensive plan, so that overarching vision for land uses that I mentioned in the beginning that's established in the comprehensive plan should be applicable. Any special use permit should be consistent with those policies in order to be approved. So what's the development process overall for a use that requires a special use permit? This is a conceptual timeline for a use that, like this one, that might require a special use permit. It's broken into 3 stages, essentially. The first of which is called legislative review. And that, again, is whether or not the use itself is permitted to happen on that site. That's this beginning section here, legislative review. Later, there's the site design review, which is a staff review of the detailed development of the site if the use is approved. And then finally, at the end, we have building permits and zoning clearances, which take care of the construction of the buildings on the sites and the clearance to begin uses. We're about here in that process. We're in the early to middle part of the legislative review when we're still trying to determine if the board will permit the use to occur on the site. Timeline so far, this particular application was received back in December. We sent comments about the application to the applicants in late January. We have not yet scheduled the application to be heard by the Planning Commission or the board. That'll happen a little later after the applicants revise their application in response both to those staff comments in January and also your comments tonight. And once you let the applicants know what your questions and concerns are. If at any point you have questions about the process, or if you want to catch up and find out when it is actually scheduled for the 2 public hearings, there's my email address at the bottom right, sclark@albemarle.org. Please feel free at any time to give me an email, and I'll be happy to update you on the process and let you know where we stand. So at that point, I will stop sharing. I will let the applicants give you a brief description of their proposal, and then you will be welcome to ask questions either of the applicants for more information about their proposal or of me for information about county review processes. So thank you for your time, and I will hand it over to the applicants.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm trying to share my screen right now. Okay.
Okay, that's
So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just real briefly, Foster Forge Farm School is a new school, hopefully opening in Albemarle County and specifically Charlottesville, Virginia. Our focus is on project-based learning, as well as we go deeper into studying nature and farm-based activities, agricultural studies. We are a very small school. We expect that our impact will be minimal for our neighbors. We hope to have 10 students when we open in September, and growing to a school no larger than 60 students. The point of that being, we believe that small classroom settings, as well as low student teacher ratios, are incredibly beneficial to kids. As the screen in front of you says here, we are a farm school, which is an innovative nature and farm-based co-ed middle school here in Charlottesville, focusing on grades 5 through 8, where the outdoors is essentially our classroom. But as much as we're here to talk about Foster Forge and would love to share more about our school and expect to do so during our question and answer session, we're really here meeting with our neighbors to share with you who we are, but also what we expect in regards to impact. Steve Driver, who's our engineer and helped us with our concept plan, is also here with us tonight as a panelist who could also go deeper in regards to some of our planning around the concept plan for Foster Forge School. So in short, our goal from a community impact perspective is to obviously being a good neighbor and a steward of Albemarle County. And we tend to do that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read to you guys at all because it's not my style. But I'm part of my screen is blocked with pictures. Okay. So in short, our school will not require substantial infrastructure, i.e. the grading of roads, the building footings for our buildings. We're using very small prefabricated buildings to provide shelter for our students when the weather is cold or not conducive to being outside. We'll be using walking trails. The intention is to have a barn and paddock space, and exploring solar and wind energy for our school and integrating that into our curriculum with our students. As I said earlier, we're starting with no more than 10 students our first year and growing hopefully to 60 students by year 5. And at this point, I think I'd love to open it up to questions.
Ready? Did you want to show anything about the conceptual plan there before we go on to questions?
Sure, and I'm going to ask Steve to chime in with me because he's the master behind this part of the presentation. So with feedback from the planning department, we've subsequently updated our concept plan. And Steve, if you want to share here.
Yeah, sure. You can see on the site plan, the project fronts on Barracks Road. It's about as deep as it is wide, but it's a fairly small parcel. And we have, in general, we will have an entrance that comes in off Barracks Road that provides access to the site. And as you're coming in from Barracks Road, to the right will be, as planned, a paddocks. There'll be a fenced-in paddocks with a barn. And to the left will be the major part of the campus, where there will be a variety of buildings that will include classrooms, bathrooms and storage, and an assembly hall. And there's an area sort of in the center of the site that's designated as special event or overflow parking. That will probably continue to be a grass area. And then in the back of the property, we have an additional classroom and also bathroom and storage and an open air pavilion. And you can see part of the concept with this plan is to encourage pedestrian circulation. You'll see there's a variety of trails throughout the property that provide access from one location to another. And centrally located would be an area where we would provide a stormwater management facility. And that is existing today, but it would be upgraded to conform with the current Department of Environmental Quality requirements for water quality and quantity treatment. So it's a fairly simple site plan. The concept anticipates that we'll need maybe about 10 parking spaces total. And there, and Ann can maybe speak to this some more, but I think there's plans to incorporate also a community bus, probably a 15-passenger bus as well, which would have an effect of diminishing the little traffic impact that would be expected by this development. And if you want to flip up to sheet 3 as well, the next sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, sheet 3 shows basically a plan and a profile view, and that's if you were sitting at the new entrance looking out on Barracks Road. It shows that there's adequate sight distance along the road to the east, which we call sight distance right, and to the left, which would be west, we call sight distance left. But that's something that VDOT requires any developer to do to ensure that the entrance is located in a safe location. And that pretty much summarizes the concept plan. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about that.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
If anybody in the attendees would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature. Right, I have one right now. I'm going to stop sharing your screen. First, we have Jeep Newman. Jeep, please state your name, address, you're affiliated with a group or organization. Your time starts when you start speaking.
Okay, so my name's Jeep Newman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know why my screen's not showing. I can't see myself, but this is just going to be very quick. So I live at 2805 Barracks Road across the street from the proposed farm. And there's a couple of things I would like to say. First of all, Ann, you mentioned you might have 60 students in the letter to all the community around me. I guess I got a letter and it says 50 people, so you've increased that. So rural zone, it is a rural zone, but that is the technical term. It means just not it's a development zone, but it certainly does not describe the bucolic environment that you would expect in a rural area. So at 6.1 acres for a farm school is pretty pretty small, I think. But I love the purpose of the school. Love it. It would be great if it was 20 acres, 25, and you couldn't see houses around and all of that. I'm sure you would prefer that too. You know full well that there's a field school going to be located on a piece of property immediately west of you on Barracks Road on the same side. And they have been approved and they have much more prospects or their growth aspects. They have an approval, but I think they got a big one to overcome. And the traffic, you mentioned that the school would have no effect on traffic. And I totally disagree with that because the traffic there, Steve, I don't know what the posted speed limit is there, but it's probably 45 or 50 because you're transitioning from one area to another. But I guarantee you that over 50% of the cars that go by there are going at least 60 miles an hour. At least they're either leaving work and they're free to fly down that hill, or they're going to work and they're annoyed and they're going as fast as they can because they broke out of 5 miles of no area to pass somebody. I mean, you all know that feeling. So I think that's going to be the main impediment to your this application. I know I'm part of Montview of 38 houses, and there's been a transition there from old people like myself to young couples with kids. So the traffic in the 30 years I have lived here has gone from maybe 1 or 2 trips a day on an average house to at least 3 to 4, because they're all married couples and their little kids going back and forth at all different times. Plus, the farm stand up there is an extremely popular place. It keeps increasing its months that is open. I think originally it opened like on the 1st of April and closed at the end of October. And now it opens on the 1st of March, which is next Tuesday. And it closes after Thanksgiving. So I assume that's allowed use and there's no restriction on the time of operation, but it keeps growing on the products that they sell. They don't have to only grow the stuff on their farm. There are all types. It's very cool. And all the people from Montview can walk there. So it's really nice. But it's a serious traffic problem there when it's open, not to mention there's a couple of huge apartment houses down just east of here within a mile. And there are many, many little kids that take the bus, and the bus stops traffic for a long time, both in the morning and afternoon, whether they're picking up or letting them up. And that's right at rush hour both times, which causes a massive traffic backup right now. So those are just a layman's peek at this situation. And I think it's going to be a tough go, Ann, I'm sorry to say. But that's all I have to say. And you can ask me any questions. I'm no expert.
Jeep, this is Steve here.
Yeah, hey, Steve, I see you. You're losing hair a little faster.
Yeah, I need to get something that grows more, but anyway.
Yeah, it's good to see you. After
Good to see you. Yeah, hey, I appreciate the comments. They're very good comments. Yeah, the speed limit on that road in front of our property there, it varies. It's 50 mile per hour posted in one direction and 45 in the other. And the sight distance right and left, the distances we show on that exhibit actually represent the posted speed limits, which is required by VDOT. But in terms of the traffic impact, VDOT is going to require a right and left turn analysis, which we plan to do. And they have the prescribed methodology that we have to use, and it's based on the VDOT Appendix F and also IT trip generation data. They currently are accepting edition 2009 and 10 as reference data. So that exercise will be done, and that report will be submitted to county staff for their review and VDOT as well.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear. I would talk to the person who lives immediately east of you, because they have a very similar turn right and left going out of there. And regardless of what the posted speed limit is, I hear you. But the average speed is higher than the posted speed limit for sure. And so that's it. That's, I understand the rules, but in actuality, this is a dangerous thing. And I mentioned it to the field school too. The liability is going to be extreme, even though it's approved. It's people, once they bring their child there and see how scary it is to make a left-hand turn out of there, is going to be scared. So that's all. That's my only issue. It's traffic. It's safety, really. It doesn't even have to do with traffic. It has to do with speed. And the designation of Barracks Road was changed within the past 2 or 3 years from, I don't know what the next lower classification is, but now it's a collector road, since a bunch of traffic comes out of Crozet every morning and returns every night, because Route 250 business is jammed up big time going in and out of the city. So, people find quicker ways to go. And so it boosts traffic when it was not expected to happen, but it has. So that's it, Steve and Ann. Good luck, and I appreciate you letting me say my piece informally. I like it.
Yeah, thanks for your input, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jeep. And I very much appreciate, and you make some really wonderful points, good points. Just in regards, I wanted to address your concern about the size, the acreage of the parcel in regards to having a farm school. We're very mindful of, again, impact, not just to our neighbors, but also in regards to what the property can handle as far as garden space and livestock. So when we talk about livestock, we talk about pygmy goats, a small number, 2 donkeys, chickens. We'll hope to be doing some beekeeping. And so the purpose is not to overwhelm the neighborhood or the land's ability to sustain a teachable moment in a farm school. So we're conscious about that, and feedback from our neighbors regarding that is incredibly welcome.
All right, next I have Rob Humphreys. Rob, please unmute yourself and you can start talking at any time.
Hello, my name is Rob Humphreys. I live at 109 Falcon Drive. My family's lived here for over 50 years now. Back in the day, I guess prior to field school, the property field school and this property were, I believe, in the county master plan, not scheduled to have county water or sewer. I'd like to ask staff if that has changed and either or both of these properties are now eligible for county water and sewer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can respond to that quickly. The property is designated for water service, but not for sewer service. The applicants can say more about what they hope to do in terms of septic processing on the site. I don't recall off the top of my head when the property was designated for water service, but it has been quite some time, so that's not a recent change.
Thank you, Scott. I can also speak to what our plans are as far as solid waste management. We do not intend to put a septic system in at the property. At this point, we're exploring alternative solid waste management options, such as composting toilets and incinerator toilets. Our goal is to be as sustainable as possible as a school community and integrate that into our curriculum, whether kids are studying math, science, or language arts. So, and we're still considering whether or not hooking up to the current water system, and talking to the deputy fire chief. That seemed to be an important decision to make, and really encouraged us to consider doing so, to be able to have that access rather than putting in a well, and the possibility of also integrating an additional hydrant in the area, which may be beneficial to the local community, the local neighborhood. Steve, you might want to talk a little bit about that as well, but.
Yeah, I think, Ann, you summarized that pretty well. If there's a connection to the water main, it would be to the Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority water main, which is on the edge of Barracks Road. And then we would probably be placing a fire hydrant on our side of the road at some point that would be acceptable to the regulatory people. And then we would bring potentially then a domestic water line feed off of that, off the end of the fire hydrant there to service the buildings.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, next I have Ellie Tucker. Ellie, please state your name and address and if you're affiliated with a group or organization. When you unmute yourself, you're ready to talk.
Mute.
Hi, I'm Ellie Tucker, and my husband, Bill Tucker, is here with me, and he's going to be speaking.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, Steve. So I can make sure I understand. This is the entrance will be on the downslope from Montview going down the hill before you come up the hill for Colthurst. Is that correct?
Yes, it would just be a little ways, I think 500 or 600 feet west of at the road intersection at the top of the hill.
Is that approximately where the entrance? There's an entrance now to that property. Is that the same
Yeah, I think
location?
that,
Approximately?
yeah, the area, Bill, where people come in now is down near an old parking lot area. This entrance would be just a little bit further up the hill from there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first speaker was absolutely correct. We've lived in Colthurst for how many years now?
37.
30 years, and the traffic has not gotten any better. In fact, it's gotten worse. And unfortunately, the people speeding down the hill from Montview area, from Georgetown, nobody understands the speed limit. I'll sometimes try to do the speed limit, and I'll have cars coming right up, on my bumper. So that's when you do your study. I know you've got to use the posted speed limit, but did they actually do a study to figure out what cars are really, what their really speed is, or do you just do it on the posted speed limit?
Yeah, it's generally based on the posted speed limit, but the charts that VDOT uses, they actually add an additional 5 miles per hour. And that's basically intended for safety purposes, for the reason that a lot of people drive faster than the speed limit. And that's why their charts are set up the way they are.
They may
Yeah.
want to add 10 miles for this stretch.
Yeah, once you
And Foxfield.
We
Yeah,
could
once you-
lobby some coffee producers there in Barracks Road to not serve coffee early in the morning or rush hour.
Now, I've got another question, but before that, Ann said something about trying to have chemical toilets or some kind of
Compost.
compost toilets. What are you going to do with wastewater and other waste products if you're not going to have a sewer system, septic system?
We'll have a gray water system, but Steve, if you could also, we also have a storm management program as well. So I think Steve can talk to that. Composting toilets have been around for a really long time, and literally the product that it creates can be used for composting purposes, some purposes. Incinerator toilets are a different animal, and in talking with the deputy fire chief and getting feedback from him, can be a very, very safe, contained system that creates an ash, if you will, and that too can be a product that can be used for other purposes. So the goal from our perspective in starting Foster Forge Farm School is to incorporate for our students that you can really go to school, you can live, you can create an environment that is low impact and incredibly sustainable over the long haul. And we intend to model that.
Yeah,
The
the system would be coordinated with the health department.
Absolutely.
As far as incinerator toilets go, they were first introduced many years ago, and they didn't work very good in the beginning, but that technology has been pretty much perfected over the years, and they're highly used now, so they're very common. So what we would do, instead of propose what I would call a conventional drain field, which might be either gravity drain field or low pressure distribution, that would handle your normal wastewater load. It wouldn't be that type of system at all. It'd be something that could handle gray water, not necessarily wastewater, but it would be, whatever would be done would be in concert with the use of some of the newer technology like the incinerator toilets that are available now.
Thank you, Steve. The last question is, we've had our neighborhood has had to deal with a church moving in and going through that, and that's turned out to be a good neighbor because there's not much traffic with the church. And we've had to deal with the field school and their potential location. So what's the relationship with the field school? I'm just curious, having two schools right together, seems to me you got not only traffic problems because you've got them right together, but what other issues could that cause, since they're not the same school? They seem to be independent schools.
And is it competition?
I think we're really lucky here in Albemarle County that we have a terrific public school system. We also have terrific private schools, both middle, upper school. I see a benefit for the community for having us next to the field school. One, we're a much smaller school. Two, I haven't talked with the head of the field school directly, but we could potentially be a benefit, an asset to the field school, depending on our programming. So the amount of traffic, parents dropping their kids off and picking them up, in addition to the projected numbers with the field school, our goal, and I know in talking with Steve, is to be able to work collaboratively with VDOT to make sure that we're not adding an overwhelming mass to what is anticipated coming down the road with the field school. And I have every confidence that the field school will be there, will be our neighbor. And so I hope I've answered that as well as I can, but we're ready. Our plan is to be no larger than 60 students. And there is also potential that we could do a bus system if need be, if VDOT thought that was something that would be appropriate, considering future use by our neighbors next door, the field school, to be able to go and pick up students and bring them to us and then bring them back. So we're very open to ideas to try to minimize traffic in and out. And as Jeep said, I totally understand that folks go faster than the speed limit. That happens on almost every road in our county. And, I think there are ways for us to work together to try to minimize and maximize, if you will, safety and impact for our community.
Thank you for that. As I asked my husband to do the questions, one popped into my head. And are you currently running a school in Crozet now like this?
No, we initially attempted to launch Foster Forge School. The goal has always been to be a farm school. And we attempted to launch earlier this year, and that wasn't successful as far as the location goes, with every intention of moving probably a year later. So this opportunity came to us to be able to do a small farm school on this particular property, and we chose to pursue that this year with the hope of opening for the school year 2022-2023.
My question had to do with, with experience that you've either had or you haven't yet had. How do you know about the egress and the entrance? I mean, how do you know how that's going to go yet? Have you studied that? Have you observed it?
I rely on Steve. He's the expert here, but I've spent a lot of time on the property. And so my understanding is in citing the best location for egress and ingress, That's really left to our engineer, to Steve, and suggestions by VDOT as well. And I believe there were some studies that were done regarding the property prior to us applying for a special use permit with the current owner in regards to the potential use for this property. So Steve, you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, well, one thing I would like to point out that probably a lot of people are not aware of is whenever you do these traffic studies, VDOT pretty much indicates what year they want you to use their traffic volumes based on. And currently, VDOT is using 2019 as their base traffic year. And I say this because what they often do is they look at traffic generation over a long period of time. In fact, you can go online and look up traffic numbers for any roads in Virginia, but they're using 2019 figures currently. And the reason for that is that was a much higher vehicular flow rate than 2020 was. It dropped significantly. And that was due to the COVID. COVID started in February of 2020. So less people were driving on the highways now than they were in 2019. And that's several factors affect that COVID, but it has to do with a little bit of a shift in our culture where businesses, some small businesses, a lot of small businesses, even some municipalities are going to a different way of handling staff. Instead of coming to the office each day, people are working more out of their homes. So the net effect this has is it's significantly reducing the total traffic load on the highways. However, even we just finished a traffic study on another project. We still have to use 2019 figures, even though they're grossly over what has been recorded for 2020 and will be recorded for 2021. So as COVID continues to work itself out, if it ever does, I think we're going to continue to see lower traffic volumes on our highways because of the shift in our culture and how we do business. But for like Foster Ford's Farm School, for example, the study that we do will be using the higher volume 2019 traffic volumes. That's what VDOT's required.
Thanks, Steve. Real quick, last question, and maybe Scott can get involved. This is the property that Dr. Hurt at some point was working on, and are y'all aware of all the stuff he buried on that property that the county made him pull up? And I'm not sure he got all of it from what I saw, but are y'all aware?
Yeah, yes, we are. Thank you. We are aware of that. And again, given the fact that the applicants are not proposing to use well water on the site, it's probably appropriate given those past concerns about possible contamination. Okay, we've got a couple more people here raising their hands. Karen, looks like Landon Parvin is first.
Yeah. Please
Can
take
you-
your name and address. If you're affiliated with the group or organization, you can start speaking.
Oh, my name is Landon Parvin, and I'm at 113.
And I think we lost you. It seems like you've been muted.
Yourself one more time. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just have a quick question. In the Crozet Gazette, it said that you had purchased land in Keswick and you would be building a schoolhouse there. I was wondering what happened.
Actually, that article came from an interview of a young man that used to work with us, and that was misinformation. There was never any purchase of property in Keswick and no intention of putting the farm there. We have been consistently looking for appropriate property basically since the pandemic started. So unfortunately, that was a misquote.
Next, I have Paige. Please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and if you're affiliated with the group or organization.
Okay. Hi, my name is Paige Zellico, and I live at 104 Tally Ho Drive in the Colthurst neighborhood. I have a couple of questions about the infrastructure, some of the structures that you've been talking about. Most of us from my neighborhood have noticed the little houses or sheds that were on the property. I'm wondering if those would actually be used. Are those the actual structures, or were they just for photographs? Also, if you could speak a little bit more about the barn structure and how big that would be, and also about any lighting that you might have that would impact the area,
Mhm.
For events in the evening or something like that.
Right, pages are all terrific questions that go directly to impact. And I'm going to let Steve chime in with me as well. But to start, the buildings that were there for about a month on the property are reflective of prefabricated buildings that we, as a school, would intend to utilize. And they're mapped out on our concept plan. So that is the concept, and the goal is to create aesthetic buildings that are in keeping and fitting with the area as much as possible. In regards to the barn size, I believe right now we have a 20 by 40 structure. Steve, I think I'm
Yeah,
right on that.
that's what we had, yeah.
Yeah, and Steve, maybe you can directly answer what's on, and I'd be happy to put up the concept plan again if that's helpful on my shared screen.
Yeah, Paige, the structures are actually, they're made in Harrisonburg, but they include a metal roof, I think, Ann, is that correct?
Yes,
What type of siding do they have on them?
they're wood siding.
Wood siding, okay, with a metal roof. And the idea is, rather than to have, one large school building like you would see on a typical school site, the concept here is to use smaller individual buildings. And they would do a variety of different activity and instruction in different buildings. But yeah, if you look at the concept plan there, you can see in the upper right corner, there's a label 14 by 18 classroom, typical. And there's 4 of those in that area, and then there's 1 in the back of the property. So those would be your typical building sizes used. The open air pavilion would be just a little bit larger, and then the bathrooms would in storage buildings would be a little bit smaller. So the idea was to keep sort of we're employing like environmental sensitivity here and not trying to put a big box building on the property.
And in regards to lighting, Paige, I think it's a great question. As a school community, we don't foresee evening and weekend events, if you will. Obviously, there are going to be weekends where we're on site to take care of the farm, but we're not a school that's going to be known for our football team or our lacrosse team. Hopefully, we'll be known for our arts and our activities with local 4-H and bringing back Future Farmers Association to Albemarle County for our students. But the goal is whatever lighting is utilized as we move forward. I know this is Steve's purview too. So as far as the bandwidth of that lighting, we as minimal as possible, tied into timers in our solar system as well. And Steve, if you could, you're much more articulate than I am in regards to our lighting.
Yeah, typically if lighting is provided on site, it would be done for mostly safety purposes, but it would utilize what they call the full cutoff type fixture. And that's typically what Albemarle embraces for use. But it basically what it means is that it does not project any light above the horizontal plane. So all the light is projected groundward and not skyward. So if you're looking down on the property, I don't know how many of you guys like to travel in an airplane, but you can fly over cities and you can see which cities utilize fully cut off fixtures and others that don't. But the cutoff fixtures, you can see the ground illuminated, whereas the other ones, you can basically see the light from the airplane. But Albemarle County typically utilizes full cutoff fixtures, and whatever lighting would be provided on the site would be in compliance with the county standard light fixture for full cutoff.
And I can just jump in to add that typically for special use permits in the rural areas, the county imposes that as a condition of approval if they are approved.
Okay.
One more question. Landon?
Yes, I do have one more question. I saw those structures and I actually thought they were garden sheds that somebody was trying to sell. And my question is, aren't there health and school requirements that demand something more than those garden sheds for kids to learn in?
Absolutely, and we don't intend to have our students utilize their classroom time inside of garden sheds. These buildings will be, we will actively work with the health department to make sure it's in compliance. All our buildings and structures are in compliance for hosting students in a school on the site. We are working with a company that creates garden sheds, creates backyard cottages. There's lots of different utilized uses for buildings. Our goal is to create as small of a footprint, if you will, with our buildings as we can.
Yes, yeah, I might add there. Yeah, these buildings are basically it's a basic structure, but as these once the building to get the building permit, each of these buildings will need to comply with the building official regulations in terms of spacing of receptacles, the amount of window opening space, the amount of door for ingress, egress, that type of thing would all have to comply with the. I think what the building department now they utilizes the 2015 International Building Code, and so anything that's done would have to comply with that code to satisfy the building for building permits.
All right, next we have Jay Fennell. Jay, please unmute yourself. State your name, address, and if you're associated with a group or organization. You're unmuted. You're muted.
There we go. My name is Jay Fennell. I live at 2100 Millington Stable Lane in Free Union. I'm also the owner of the property. I'd like to thank the folks that presented too. And I really do understand that traffic is a challenge. I've lived on Garth Road my entire life. I'm backing this because I've got about 25 years in education. And I also believe that, so 9 of those were at field school, and I believe that these two programs together would complement each other too. I saw what projected development and dumping of debris on the property did to it, and then the proposed highway to get the bypass to go through it also. And I just feel like this use for the property would serve a community good, and just offering my support. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Anybody else with their hands up? So Scott, you're muted.
Sorry about that. If there's anyone else who'd like to ask a question or provide some input, please go ahead and hit the raise hand button on your Zoom screen. We'll be finishing up in a couple minutes here, but I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. And it looks like we do have one more person with a question.
Introduce yourself, state your name, address, and if you're affiliated with a group or organization.
Hi, my name is Brad Hunter, and I live at 108 Tallyho Drive. I just wanted to ask, and not sure if you've studied this piece or not, but the comments about the road again, outside of just the turning issues and the VDOT entrance issues, is the intent to make that road a non-passable road in that area with the addition of the school? I believe at this point, I see it all the time. I see cars passing each other at high rates of speed. In fact, I think somebody died there not too long ago, a few years ago, as a result of an accident. But I am very concerned about that piece of that, and wondered if you looked at that option, if that's going to be required by VDOT, if you do in fact put an entrance there.
Yeah, I'm going from memory now, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, I think that road now is painted with the yellow double line and non-passing zone. Is that correct?
I think it depends on what portion of the road, and that goes back to Tucker's comments about where exactly your entrance is, but some of it is definitely passable, and at some point it goes to double lines, but it's pretty darn close to where your entrance is based on that map you showed.
Yeah, typically what's done is on the final plan, the road paint demarcation is shown and labeled. So for example, if there's a double yellow line along all of the property frontage, that would be shown on the final plan. It's very uncommon. In fact, I've never seen it in 45 years for VDOT to come back and make a non-passing zone a passing zone if they've approved a new commercial entrance. But typically the paint lining and so forth is shown on the final site plan. And that's part of what VDOT reviews when they look at all the traffic data in terms of final approval for the site plan.
Okay. I mean, the other input I have is I think it's a great idea. I think it's probably the wrong location. What you may not know is in Coldhurst, we do have our covenants and bylaws that don't allow farm animals in the neighborhood. And obviously Coldhurst kind of wraps around some of the area here. And for the same reasons that we don't allow it, I'm sure that most of our neighbors would not appreciate having farm animals that close, including chickens, and the composting. Again, I think I love the idea and the concept. It feels like the wrong area for a school of this type. And it's just surprising that you'd have it so close to town and not one in a slightly more rural area, further out north, for example. But, I know we have the Free Union School farther out. And in this case, this is just really close to town on an emergency route that by the county. And I disagree with Steve's comments about, traffic being reduced on this road over time because of people's changing work habits. I think, in fact, this is probably one of the most desirable areas of Western Albemarle County and will continue to grow with some restriction in the county's guidance. But I think adding traffic to this is probably a really bad idea, particularly at that bottleneck piece of the road as you're coming into town.
Brad, if I could say, I think your thoughts and your feelings around this are warranted, absolutely. And I come from a place where I think there can be some flexibility in regards, as I had mentioned before, doing some busing on our part to a central meeting area, potentially down at the Barracks Road Shopping Center with future parents. So that would minimize traffic going in and out. But also staggering our open and close times with the field school so that it's not at the same time. There are some things that we can kind of think outside the box around that could potentially minimize some of these concerns.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a concern of yours as well. The concept of busing from Barracks Road. It's just, I think in general, where most folks' minds go to is this is just probably the wrong spot for a warranted need of a school this size.
Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right, we don't have anybody else at this time?
Alrighty, if anyone would like to ask any questions, please go ahead and put your hand up so we can give you a chance. If on the other hand, everybody's had their questions answered for now, then we'll go ahead and close out the meeting. While we're waiting, give people one last chance to raise their hands. We'll remind you my email address is sclark@albemarle.org, SCLARK. If you have any questions about the process or about the details of the proposal. People often ask, what's the next step? The next step will be for the applicants to resubmit their application with responses to your concerns tonight and to the questions forwarded onto them by staff. And that'll be then in preparation for that first public hearing with the Planning Commission. I don't see that anyone else has raised their hand, so I think we can probably go ahead and close out the session. Thank you everyone for attending and taking the time, and we do appreciate everyone's input on this.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Ann.